Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into my next team preview video. Today I am doing the Miami Dolphins. I'm going to be looking over I'm going to talk about Brian Flores, their head coach. I'm going to look at the remaining cap space, any notable players that have been on the team for the last couple of years that are entering their final year of their contract. Take a look at their offense, take a look at their defense, give my overall feelings at the end of the episode. And then, of course, if you guys have watched my previous videos, you do know I give this a fantasy football perspective when I am going over the offense as I go through this video. But yeah, I think I'm just gonna go ahead and get this started. I kind of got these videos down as far as how I do them. So if this is your first time watching one of my videos, I do appreciate you tuning in. So that is what you can expect. But yeah, talking about Brian Flores, he's entering his third year as the head coach of Miami. He's showed some significant promise as a good to great head coach in this league ever since he joined Miami. You know, his first year is supposed to be they're going to be tanking, not even winning a game, but that team was surprisingly highly competitive every week and ended up sneaking out and upsetting some people throughout the year. And then last year, you saw them take the next step where they were just knocking on the door to the postseason. A lot of people expected them to make it to the postseason last year. If you don't forget, all they had to do was beat the Bills in that last game of the year, and the Bills were sitting players because they already locked up their spot in the playoffs. But for whatever reason, on that day, the Miami Dolphins just kind of fell flat on their face, and the Buffalo Bills ran them out of the building and basically sealed their fate to barely miss the playoffs. So obviously, you're looking for that next step, and the next step would be to crack into the playoffs this year underneath Brian Flores. And I definitely think that is plausible, definitely possible this year. If he can get the fullest out of this roster, and he definitely. I mean, I'm probably, spoiler alert, probably getting into this way too early. As long as some of their guys can stay healthy, especially on the defensive side of the ball throughout the year. But let's just go ahead and get into this episode. Taking a look at the remaining cap space for Miami. Miami's sitting with the sixth least remaining cap space. They're only have about $6.3 million. Now, that is a little room to work with. They wanted to keep on adding anybody to the roster to add some depth, maybe trade for somebody. But it's not like they can go get like a big name that's carrying a big contract number prior to the season. Obviously, that number just dropped recently because they gave that pay raise to Xavier Howard, who really deserved it. I'll talk about his play from last year later on this episode. And then guys are entering a contract year. I don't expect Emmanuel Ogbah or Mike Gesicki to get any type of contract extension prior to the season. Emmanuel Ogbah is very good deep interior defensive front alignment for them, but they got 2 draft picks next to him they have invested in. So I don't really see him getting an extension prior to the season, but maybe they can work out something at the end of the year as long as his play stays up to par throughout the year. Then Mike Gesicki, he's been a very solid tight end for them. He's kind of been inconsistent at times, but I don't see it happening just because, they also got Adam Shaheen. They drafted Hunter Long this year. So they also got a number of tight ends on the roster where I think if a team were to outbid for Mike Gesicki's services at the end of this year in the offseason, I think they may be okay moving on from Gesicki and maybe, either signing somebody new or drafting somebody new if they wanted to add to the tight end room. But if he balls out, maybe they can work out something at the end of the year. So since I don't really see much movement going on in that, let's just go ahead and dive into this offensive preview. Now, these projected starters, they are from Devin Jackson. You can follow Devin on Twitter at @RealD_Jackson. Let me make sure that is right, by the way, because I think I kind of did that off memory, and I don't want to do a disservice to Devin and make sure I got his right @ on there. That is my fault. I do apologize. I did this. Yeah, that is it. I did this very late last night when I worked on my script because I went to go help out a friend move something. So, all right, let's keep it moving. Sorry, I just want to make sure I did write that in the script right as far as his Twitter handle. So yeah, go give Devin a follow. He's a really great dude. He pumps out content, and if you like draft stuff, if you like storytelling, Devin's the man to follow. This is his second team I'm getting his projected starters from. And by the way, the projected starters, that's from the Prospect Encyclopedia. And if you're unaware, the Prospect Encyclopedia is in its second year. It's about to be released here in the coming weeks. Once I know the official date, I'll let you guys know. And basically, in order to make Miami's top 22 player list inside the Prospect Encyclopedia, you have to be from the last 3 draft classes. You have to have less than 12 career regular season starts. So these are guys gaining that meaningful NFL starting experience. The list ranges anywhere from core special team guys all the way to future superstars of the league. So if you see a star next to any of these players' names, that means they have a scouting report in that Prospect Encyclopedia, and you can order that once it comes out and read their report prior to the NFL season starting. But yeah, let's just go ahead and dive into this. Let's start at the most important position in football, the quarterback position, with Tua Tagovailoa. Tua's entering his second year. Obviously, his rookie year was kind of I don't know. It was a weirder, one of the more weirder rookie quarterback seasons I've seen in some time, because he started off on the bench, right, which was rightfully so. He was coming off that gruesome hip injury that ended his college career, and Ryan Fitzpatrick. I mean, not that was Fitzpatrick was playing bad. Fitzpatrick was playing really good. Miami's winning a lot of games, and they were looking like they're going to be a potential playoff team last year. And then I forget when it was. I want to say it was like halfway point through the year. It was like coming off a big win for Miami, and all of a sudden, like, I think, was it that night or it was the next day? All of a sudden, that report came out that they were going to bench Fitzpatrick and they were going to put Tua in. There was a lot of commotion and drama about that whole switch over. So Tua ended up getting the starting job at some point last year. And then at some points, some games, Tua was, I don't know if it was he was struggling, but either he wasn't effectively moving the ball, but he wasn't really being efficient. And there are some games where they brought in Ryan Fitzpatrick. I remember obviously the Raiders game, because Fitzpatrick came in at the end, got his helmet almost ripped off when he tossed that ball down the field. So that, I don't know if I really agree with that way of handling a rookie quarterback. Again, I'm not an NFL coach, but I do wonder if that did hurt Tua's confidence last year. But there were that game against the Cardinals. That's the game I keep on thinking about from Tua last year. I remember after that game, Miami beat the Cardinals. Tua was he was running for first down. He was making great throws. I thought we saw what Tua was gonna be, at least as a rookie. And then he kind of never built upon that. He never started growing from that. I don't know if it was like a rookie wall. I don't know if he was still kind of dealing with the hip. But either way, I think he had quietly, I think it was a I don't know if a solid, but a decent rookie season for a quarterback. Again, he didn't even get to the 12 career starts yet, so he is still working his way and growing, learning and how to be an NFL quarterback. Now he's entered his sophomore year. He's more than a year away from that hip injury now, so he should be fully healthy entering this year. That should help him deliver better on throws. That should help him even with his mobility and able to stretch out plays. And I think we're going to see a strong second year from Tua. He's got a number of weapons he can spread the ball to. And I think the additions of his former college teammate Jalen Waddle and the addition of Will Fuller, those guys can stretch out the field. And I think that kind of fits Tua's skill set with his accuracy, with his ability to lead wide receivers, and they can get big chunk plays. So I'm expecting a very strong second year for Tua. I don't know if it's going to be he's going to put out gaudy numbers or anything like that, but if he can just be efficient and accurate with his play throughout this year, I think that you're going to see a nice offense that can move the ball down the field and be in scoring position more times than not. But other than that, as far as looking at Tua for a fantasy quarterback, I mean, he's kind of a sleeper if you think about it, because Devontae Parker, Jalen Waddle, and Will Fuller. Now, obviously, you're betting on all three of those guys staying on the field throughout the year, but that's a very nice trio. He's got Gesicki and a number of tight ends he can throw the ball to. Myles Gaskins is a pretty good back you can dump the ball off to in screen games. So there's a scenario where if this all hits right and Tua's the quarterback he was drafted to be, Tua could end up working his way up, maybe to a quarterback 2 at some point. I don't think a quarterback 1 quite yet this year, but if he's a guy where if you draft like a Matt Ryan or a Kirk Cousins, one of the veteran quarterbacks, he's a guy maybe you take with your last pick, stash on your bench, and see how he comes out at the beginning of the year. And if he becomes a fantasy relevant quarterback, you didn't spend much, draft capital on him, and then you can just slide him right in your lineup. So just watch him this year because I think he's gonna have a lot better. I think he's gonna put on a better performance, and I think the people that were doubting him last year will kind of hold their tongues back this year. Yeah, so I'm gonna keep it moving then. Miles Gaskin's the projected starter. Miles Gaskin came on strong last year. They're definitely their better running back. He's not like the most flashiest running back. He just understands his role. He's good at the receiving game. He's good at the screen game, and he can make people miss in the open field. And he's just a good overall solid back. And in terms of fantasy, he's a guy where I view him more of as a bench and flex play. That's how I had him last year. I had him on a couple teams. I ended up picking him up. I just wonder if he's going to be consistent. I wonder if he's going to dominate the touches out of the backfield this year because they did sign Malcolm Brown from the Rams and they did give him money. So he's obviously going to work in the rotation. And I think Malcolm Brown's going to be the guy that's going to be on the field specifically when they get closer to the red zone. So this is another scenario where I can see like Myles Gaskin getting all the touches in between the 20s and then Malcolm Brown coming in and finishing the drive with the touchdown. So I like Miles. He's a guy, if I can get him on my bench, I want it. But I don't want to draft him to be like a RB2. I don't even want to draft him to be my flex guy. I view him more as a flex guy right now, but I'd rather him be on my bench that I could put in the flex if I wish to that week. But overall, he's just a very solid back. And then the running back, the Gaskin and Malcolm Brown, they're like I don't know, and it's like a poor man's, like, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. It's just like they are just a very decent running back tandem. It's nothing sexy. They're gonna get the job done, but they're gonna fill their roles. They're not gonna be the guys that they can make explosive chunk run plays, and run, get a $150 on the ground against any of the opposing defenses. But I think they can work off each other pretty well. Now, what I'm very excited, though, about is to see how this wide receiver room plays out this year. Devontae Parker, he's been, when he's on the field, he's been very solid throughout his career. But that's been the problem with him is he has his number of injuries that he's dealt with throughout his whole career. But whenever he's on there, he's got a great catch radius. He can be somebody that Tua looks at when they get down to the red zone, and he can work the boundary very well for them. And then going with Will Fuller, he's another guy you kind of have your concerns with injuries. When he's another guy, when he's on the field, he adds another element to the offense because he can stretch the defense out because at any given moment, he can breeze past the cornerback and get like a 40-yard plus play for you. So I like his ability to create the separation for Tua, like I mentioned earlier. And then the guy I'm really excited about is Jalen Waddle. I don't know. Obviously I like what I see on tape, but I don't know what it is with my intuition about him. But something tells me he's going to have a very good rookie year. I think maybe it's because he has the chemistry with Tua dating back to their days in Alabama. And I think there's something special about this kid. And I think the fact that Devontae Parker can demand enough attention, I think the fact that Will Fuller's speed can demand enough attention, I think Jalen Waddle is going to get some one-on-one opportunities to carve up defenses with his electric playmaking ability. So I'm excited to see what Jalen Waddle does this year. Now, if we're going to take a look at these three wide receivers in terms of fantasy football, Jalen Waddle is the guy I want. Jalen Waddle is the guy I want on my bench. And then if he ends up being the guy I'm kind of feeling like he can be as a rookie, he could slide in as your wide receiver 3, and he can give you explosive playmaking weeks at any given moment. Now, I will be honest, like I do have my concerns that maybe the target load for all three wide receivers could be volatile. It could switch up every week. Maybe Devontae dominates the targets one week, Will Fuller dominates the targets one week, and Jalen Waddle dominates the targets one week. But the reason why I also lean towards Jalen Waddle as a wide receiver to own is, Jalen Waddle's coming off that injury in Alabama, but that was just the one injury he dealt with, if my memory's serving me right, during his time in college. Devontae Parker and Will Fuller have been in the league for what, about 5 years each, I think, now at this point. And those guys have dealt with a number of injuries throughout their career. I want to say Will Fuller actually has been hurt in camp already this year. I think that is true. Double check me on that one. But that's my whole point is if you want to bet on history of injuries, Devontae Parker and Will Fuller more likely are going to probably miss some games at some point of this year. As long as Jalen Waddle's fully healthy off that ankle injury he dealt with last year, he's going to be on the field every week and somebody that you can count on. So Jalen Waddle's the guy I want to draft on my bench. Will Fuller I can understand because anytime he's on the field, he's been highly productive. And Devontae Parker, I guess if you want him on your bench, you could slide in during bye weeks, but I'm targeting Waddle out of this group. And if those guys were to miss injuries, they got a super deep, as you can see over their notable starters. I got like a whole group of wide receivers sitting there. Preston Williams is a guy I've always liked. He's entering, I believe, year 3. Jakeem Grant and Albert Wilson, they paid money to in the past, but I think they're at their back end of the contract. And they got some number of younger guys. So some of those guys are definitely not going to make the final roster. It will be interesting to see who makes it, but they got a pretty decent decent backup group behind those 3 guys. If like Parker, Fuller, or even Waddle were have to miss any time. Now moving on to their tight end, Mike Gesicki. Mike Gesicki is actually tied for the 9th most touchdowns among tight ends since 2018. He's been all right as a tight end. Some weeks he looks really good, like he should be their starting tight end of the future, and then some weeks he kind of disappears. You see guys like Adam Shaheen and Durham Smythe getting more involved. When I was looking at my stats I collected last night because I posted all that stuff earlier in the summer on my Twitter, so I'm searching these guys by names, and I totally forgot last year I owned Mike Gesicki. And there was one game, I think Tua was the starter of that game, and they kept on throwing touchdowns to tight ends. It was every tight end but Mike Gesicki. So that's where I have my worries as far as Mike Gesicki in terms of fantasy football, is I think he's going to have an inconsistent target load every week. So I think, you're going to play him. So he's a touchdown-dependent tight end. So he's a tight end too that depends on touchdowns. So in terms of fantasy, I'm definitely trying to avoid Mike Gesicki and try to go with other options. But I understand, and I think he could have a very strong year because those guys with the speed, Waddle and Fuller, they're going to stretch the defenses open. So they're going to open up things in the middle of the defense for the tight ends like Mike Gesicki to work. So he could potentially have a very strong season if he's going to be the lead guy out of the tight end group. Otherwise, it might be a number of tight ends that are working that middle of the defense when the guys on the boundary and in the slot are stretching things out for them, and so they can find things open for Tua. But other than that, he's a good, solid receiving tight end. But in terms of fantasy, I just have my worries about his inconsistent getting week in and week out points that you can count on from your tight end. Now, this offensive line, very interested to see how they play. For after trading with Laramie Tunsil away to the Texans a couple years ago, I think they built this group up great. I really do, because not only Devon's projected starting offensive line is very solid in my opinion. I think that even the backups they with Michael Dieter that they have, it can even work his way in as a center or guard, for example. But it'll be dependent though on their young guys. So that's the thing. I think it has the potential of being a very solid offensive line, but these young guys got to take a step up. Obviously, Austin Jackson, their left tackle, he was up and down last year. He showed some good things one moment, had a bad game the next moment. So you just want to see some more consistency out of Austin Jackson this year. And then if Liam Eichenberg's going to get the right tackle position, he's a guy I think can come in and start right away. He's got very great technique. I think those guys can make a decent bookend tackle situation for Miami. Robert Hunt is just a bully. I like him playing guard right next to Austin Jackson. They bring in Matt Skura from the Ravens. He's competing with Dieter for that center position. Either guy that gets the start have experience of being a starter and are pretty good, are pretty solid at what they do. And Solomon Kindley came on strong last year as a rookie guard for Miami. So, it's a lot of young guys though. But if all those guys can hit, if they can gel early, and they can give Tua some time to scan the field and pick defenses apart with his pinpoint accuracy, I like the chances of this being a pretty decent offense. As an overall offense, I think it's going to come down to those young guys on the offensive line gelling together. It's going to come down to Tua does indeed have to take the next step as a as in his year two. All you got to ask for is just the running backs to do enough, and then if those guys in the wide receiver room can live up to their explosive playmaking ability, you got an offense that can not only move the chains at times, but then they can take the top off the defense because of Will Fuller and Waddle. So I'm interested to see how this offense looks this year because I'm not sure. I know they changed offense coordinators. I think they actually got co-offensive. Yeah, that they're the team that has the co-offensive coordinators this year. So I'm very curious to see how the play calling comes in and how they utilize everybody's talents to their full ability. But overall, I think it can be a decent offense this year, and I think it's good. I think it should be a lot better than it was last year and not have the inconsistencies that it did. Now let's keep it moving to their defense. This is again, these are the projected starters pulled from the Prospect Encyclopedia from the man Devin Jackson. Please give Devin a follow at real_D_Jackson on Twitter so you can keep up with all of his latest content. Now this defense is very interesting because I think the top of the depth chart is great, but then I have my concerns with the depth for the front seven. Not the secondary. I think the secondary is very deep. But their front seven, this can get very ugly quick if injuries were to happen. But let's just talk them up really quick. The interior part of their defense is one of the better ones I've came across since I started studying these rosters as we head into the season. Christian Wilkins, I'm a big fan of. He's entering his year 3 since he's left Clemson. I think he's going to take the next step. Raekwon Davis was a top 10 interior defensive lineman in his class for me, so I'm excited to see where he is at with his career. And I already talked about Emmanuel Ogbah as just a very solid veteran defensive lineman. Those guys are not only great at not only just solid at what they do, but they're going to be able to demand some presence from the offensive line, which should be able to help the interior linemen Bernardic McKinney and Jerome Baker to kind of fly over the field and make those tackles and end run plays. So yeah, I do like their front seven as on paper. Bernardic McKinney is coming back from an injury. And Jerome Baker has been pretty solid for Miami ever since he joined the team a few years ago in 2018 from the draft. And then Andrew Van Ginkel, he's a good guy. He's a good solid linebacker. I'm kind of surprised they moved on from Kyle Van Noy. I think he would have been a better person to have in that spot, but I guess they are pretty happy with Van Ginkel taking over. I guess they feel like he can do as much as Van Noy was able to do for him. And then the name to watch is their first round pick. Was he first round? I forget. Sorry, second round pick. Jalen Phillips out of Miami. He's a guy where he can be that consistent edge rusher for him because that's kind of basically been Miami's problem for the last couple of years is they need a consistent edge rusher. They tried Shaq Lawson and that did not work out, and they traded him for Bernardic McKinney after 1 year. So if Jalen Phillips can come on strong as a rookie, then I really like their defensive front. Overall, I think it's solid. I think the interior defensive front is good. The linebacker situation is solid between the inside linebackers. And then, like I said, Andrew Van Ginkel, all right. And then Jalen Phillips has a high ceiling as an edge rusher. You just want to see how that's going to translate into the NFL and see if he can be a consistent player for them this year. But again, they are betting on a rookie to do that because I don't really like the depth behind them as far as guys they can work in the rotation to get after the quarterback. So that's where I have my concerns is if Phillips cannot deliver as a pass rusher, is that going to get the secondary tired because they're just sitting back there? They got a really good secondary to cover guys and give the defensive front some time. So I think they're going to have to be creative with their blitz packages this year. But going back to that secondary, you can argue it's one of the best secondaries in the league. You got it's the best cornerback tandem in the league, I think, between Byron Jones and Xavier Howard. Justin Coleman is a sneaky addition as their nickel corner. And then Javon Holland's a very solid safety coming in from Oregon that they drafted in the second round. And then Eric Rowe, he's just a guy. He's a guy that gets the job done and a guy that I think can teach Javon Holland how to be a good safety in this league. And then if they miss anybody, I mean, they brought in Jason McCourty from the Patriots, so he's going to be able to work in the rotation. Nick Needham has been, solid for them since joining the team. And then obviously their first round pick from last year, Noah Benogany, I think I said that right. If he could take that next step, I'm sure he's going to work himself in the rotation as well. So they got a very deep cornerback group. I like Brandon Jones from Texas last year. He might be able to work in some snaps with Eric Rowe at the strong safety position. So I really like their depth in the secondary. Now here's a stat I do want to go over before I forget. Xavier Howard is coming off one of the best seasons ever from a defensive back. He's actually one of 7 players in NFL history to have a season of 50 plus tackles, 15 plus pass deflections, and 10 plus interceptions. The last guy to do it was like Champ Bailey or somebody back in like the mid 2000s. So that season has not happened in a long time, and Xavier Howard did that last year. And another thing on Xavier Howard is he has the most interceptions since 2018. He has 18 of them in between the last 3 years. That's insane when you think about the amount of interceptions he's gotten. So he's a complete ball hawk. I like their secondary. They could be a shutdown pass defense. I just have my worries where if the secondary is doing their job, can that defensive front get after the quarterback in time and end the drives? That's my concern with the defense. And then my other major concern is if Wilkins, Davis, and Ogba start like having a missed time in the lineup, I don't like the depth behind them. If Bernardrick McKinney and Jerome Baker, one of those two go down, I don't like the depth behind them. And then, like I mentioned, you're counting on a rookie to be the pass rusher. And then if he's not the guy, or if he has to miss time, I don't think they got much behind them. So I think this is a team when the cut down date comes down, they need to look at other people getting cut from rosters or borderline roster guys and see if they can make a trade or something to add some more guys in that defensive front 7 rotation in case injuries were to happen. Because if that does happen, they're going to get picked apart on the ground. And as good as that secondary is, if you can't get after the quarterback, they're going to get tired, and the quarterback's going to have enough time for something to develop and get open for them. So that's my concern with their defense. But and then before I move on from the defense, I always talk about I like to stream defenses, and I always draft my defenses in redraft leagues. I always draft them based on their week 1 matchup. They have the Patriots week 1. Now this is in Foxborough. I mean, I know Coach Flores knows this team, and that Patriots offense, we're kind of, the jury's still out on that, if they're going to be good or not. If Cam's starting, maybe I can see it happening because you can bet on maybe Xavier Howard getting a pick 6 on Cam. I could see myself considering it, but I think there's a lot more matchups now that I'm like, more than halfway through the teams doing my previews that I would rather prefer. But yeah, that's my preview video. As far as overall, this Miami team, I think it's been proven before with Coach Flores. It does not matter who's on this team. He's going to bring a highly competitive team every week. So with that being said, this team is the best team he's had since he's been in Miami. This is a team where I think as long as everybody can stay healthy on both sides of the ball and Tua can take that next step in year 2, I think they're going to be in the mix for a wild card spot at the end of the year. I do not believe they have enough to overtake the Bills as a division leader. I could be proven wrong, but I think they're going to be in the mix at the end of the year. They're going to be one of those teams competing for the final 3 wild card spots. If the offensive line can gel, and those young guys can come together, and Tua does take that next step, and those 3 wide receivers can stay healthy for all the year, I think you could see an offense that's around the middle of the pack that can be a top 10 offense on any given week because of their explosive playmaking ability with Will Fuller and with Jalen Waddle. Now their defense, it can be very solid if Jalen Phillips can come on as a consistent pass rusher, and that secondary can live up to its hype and be the best secondary in the NFL. But I do have my concerns, though, if injuries start to happen to this team. I just talked up in my defensive section. If the injuries happen to the defensive front 7 of Miami, that defense's play is going to start falling down. If the wide receivers start to miss time on the offense and that offensive line kind of deals with some injuries, that's when you're going to see some inconsistencies from the Miami offense. So for me, I think they have enough where they can finish second in the AFC East and make it in the wild card. But I just wonder if depth issues are going to come to play when we get to the back end of the year, kind of like it did last year for Miami. So overall, it's going to be a very solid team. But if Tua can be the guy that they drafted him to be, a franchise quarterback, a guy that can pull them to the playoffs, I can definitely see that happen. I'm very interested to see if Tua is able to take the next step. But overall, it's a borderline playoff team to me that can easily make the playoffs if Flores gets the best out of this roster and health doesn't come up as a concern throughout the year. But yeah, that's my episode today, guys. I do appreciate you tuning in to this preview video. I'm gonna keep on pumping these out, I'm doing my best to wake up early and get at least one of these done a day. So I can try to get these wrapped up. It's probably not going to be wrapped up by August 15th, obviously. I'm hoping to get as many as I can get done in the coming week. It just depends on my availability. But I'm going to keep on pumping these out. So the next team I do have is the Washington football team. I plan on doing that at some point tomorrow. We got a storm rolling in this weekend, so I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to handle my personal free time this weekend. So again, I do thank everybody for tuning in. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't. It's my goal to keep on getting more subscribers. I would love to get to 100 subscribers by the time the Cowboys and Bucks kick off the regular season. Other than that, I'm going to head out. I'll see you guys when I do that Washington football team preview video. Peace out, guys.